Okay, so this is where we left off. So we have this from the button, the menu button, and it pops up and we don't have a way to get it back out. The other thing too is that it's still taking the original black and white kind of styles, and I would like to style it so that it's a little bit, I don't know, has more differentiation between itself and the background. And maybe this is a little bit too opaque. Maybe it needs to be a little more transparent. So let's go back over into our CSS and let's do some things to make some changes here. First thing I'm going to make is a change to the opacity. So I'm going to maybe try it at 0.8 for the opacity. And the other thing is that I want to make this hover different so that it's not just flipping the text color. So I'm going to try something that I think would look nice. It's sort of this blue from the logo. It's this pale blue and a white text. We could save that and test that. The other thing too is that we could take this exact same color, this blue from the logo. I want to copy that, and if I come up here to where the normal A is, I can change the color. Instead of having it be white, I can change that so that it's this blue color. Let's try that. Just see what happens. See how that makes a change. Refresh the page. Click on that, and then it looks a little bit better. But now the problem is that I think I made the opacity a little bit too light. So instead of just being 0.8, we could maybe make it. Let's try 0.87 or something like that. And let's see what happens. Refresh. And that's a little bit better. And maybe this needs to be a brighter color than this blue. You know, maybe it needs to be white text or something, I don't know. But the other thing that we could do to differentiate these as actual buttons is put a border underneath the list item. So let's come down here and let's do a border, and let's do actually border dash bottom. So it's only on the bottom, and we'll do 1 pixel and we'll make it solid, and let's make it like a 666. Okay, just sort of a lighter gray, but not too light. And then we've got at least some kind of delineation there. And you know, if that's not working out for you, then you can change it. And I actually think that this blue is a little bit, it's not working out. It's a little bit too dark for my taste. So I think that we'll take this and we'll go back to having it be white, and we'll see how that fares. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, so now we need to get out of there. So we need to create the button that's going to show up here, but it's not going to show up in this view. Okay, so we don't want it to come up here. So I'll go back to Komodo, and let's go, and we're actually going to create the button that we need, or the list item link that we need. All right, let me just make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Let's go down here in the href area, and here's where, excuse me, in the list item area, and here's where we have our list. And what I want to do is I want to add this to the bottom of the list. I'm going to create another li, and inside of here we're going to put an ID, and we're going to call this hide nav. And this is going to be right here. It's going to be the ID that triggers when we click it. It's basically going to remove the mobile nav class so that it closes that overlay. Okay, so inside of that, that means we have to have an anchor link. So an ahref equals, and here we can just put a pound symbol, because again, it's not going to actually do anything except for refresh the page. So we can have that link right there, and then the inside of it, it's going to be an image. And so we're going to say, and the image that I'm using is going to be a button picture. It's like a little arrow picture, so that it looks like something that's intuitive to like close it. So we're going to say close menu, I guess. Okay, and the image source, if you wanted to toggle the left drawer so we could see our images, the picture that's by default going to be in there is, you would think that it would be the actual normal state, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the hover state in there, because we're going to do something where it starts off as being transparent, and then on hover it becomes opaque, and so it's really, we need the hover state in this. So anyway, where I have my image, I'm going to put images slash, and then I'm going to look for up dash hover dot png. Okay, so it's this file right over here. I'm going to toggle my drawer closed. Now that picture file should just be there, but the thing is that, you know, I want to make sure that that is not normally visible. I'm going to put real quickly, I'm going to put a comment around this so that it's really clear. I'll put end hide. I'm going to put a comment around this so that it's really clear what this thing is. Okay, save that. Okay, so now we can actually go and test it. Let's go double check, do a refresh, and now there's this weird thing down here, but it's there, and if I click it, it disappears. Okay, so that's my hide nav. Now see something else that's happening? We're still getting that weird little hover thing effect happening right there. Now I want to right click and I want to show you something. If we inspect that element, you can see that it's in fact still picking up this class. So if you actually, you notice that it doesn't say class equals anything, there's something wrong with that. Basically what happened is that when we added the attribute of class, we added the actual class. What happened is it never took it away. So if you look at the code here, our UL never had a class to begin with. So what's happening is whenever we add the attribute of class equals mobile nav, whenever we take it back away, when we click on the button, it doesn't disappear. Here, let me refresh and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's start with a new page, and you see that UL is just a plain UL. Now when we click menu, see what it did is it added class equals mobile nav right here. Now if I get rid of it by, here, let's find the button, which is here. If I click on it here, let's open this up even further so that you can see more of it. As soon as I click this button, watch what happens down here where it says UL class equals mobile nav. It gets rid of the mobile nav part, but it leaves the class. So that means that, you know, we need to actually get rid of this so that it's proper markup. So there was something I left out in my JavaScript that I should go back and fix, and so you can fix that with me. If you look here also, this is not going to be fixed just because of this class thing. It just alerted me to it. I'll show you how to fix that too. Let's jump back to the code, and we're going to scroll up here where we have our function in the JavaScript that says hide nav. Basically when you click the hide nav ID, then it's going to do this where it's going to remove the mobile nav class. Well, what I want you to do is I want you to just copy this whole line, and then at the end of it, come down here and paste. And what I want you to do is leave this whole first part, but then where it says remove class, what we're going to do is we're going to say remove attribute. And it's not really going to be spelled the whole word out, attribute. It's going to be capital A T T R. So you're going to say remove capital A T T R, and then instead of saying mobile nav, we're going to use the word class, because we're going to remove the class attribute at the same time that we're also removing the actual class that's called mobile nav. Let's save that, and then let's just jump back over here and we'll test this again. So let's refresh the page. Okay, it's still spinning. Okay, now you'll notice down here we've got our unordered list, no class. Click on menu. And also notice that it added the class of mobile nav. Now I want to click my button to make it go away, and then see it gets rid of the class and its attribute. So that's something that I should have done originally, but good. Now you get to see a troubleshooting method, even using JavaScript. So what I want to do now is I want to deal with this little problem that's popping up. And I know why that's happening. It's something that I didn't correct immediately. And this is the way it is. You're going to find stuff and you just have to go and fix it. So if actually, let's take a look at it in the inspector. If I right click that and I inspect it, of course it jumps down to this ULLI. And the thing is that if you notice, the original UL has a rule of nav top UL and it's set to float right. Well, if I take the float off, which I don't really want to do, it does that, right? Okay, so we don't necessarily want to take the float off, but what we probably want to do instead is, let's just see what would happen if we say clear both. Okay, for one thing, I want it to be able to clear these other floats, and look what happens. It automatically goes away. It's still there in the code, right? But it's actually, if I hover it, you see that it's cleared the line. It's not still trying to float up next to that other menu. Okay, so that's helpful too. If you wanted to be absolutely certain that it never, came up, you could also give it a top margin or something like that. But I'm just going to put clear both on it. Now, what that means is, this is just temporary. What I can do here is I can come over. I could also say, float none, right? And we can see what that does too. And you see that now my list items are there. It doesn't really matter whether it's floating or not. The most important thing is that it's clearing the previous floats. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a rule. I'm going to copy this from my inspector, and I'm going to create a rule inside of my media query. I'm going to go up sort of to the top. If you see, here's your actual media query. We've got our sections, and then we have the menu. Okay, and then I'm going to get to a place where it makes sense, probably right here, to add this rule for nav top UL, and I'm going to say clear both. All right, I'm just going to add that. So now when I come back and I refresh this page, I should be able to, yeah, see, it's not coming up anymore. I should be able to click this, no problems. All right, and that UL, when I hover it, you see that it's not in any danger of being visible. Okay, so those are a couple of troubleshooting methods that you might need to come across in your own work. Okay, all right, so everything seems to be working so far. Okay, so the next thing that I want to deal with is I want to show you how you can style this guy. First of all, let's get this image in the center and let's figure out how we're going to manage with that. Okay, so come over here to CSS, and if you look at the actual button, you see that it's a list item of hide nav that's inside of these descendants. So let's follow the descendant trail. And for me to do that, I'm just going to paste this and I'll explain it. So first off, we're going to be targeting this image, okay, this IMG, that's inside of an A tag, that's inside of the hide nav list item, and so forth, okay? So you can follow the descendant trail up. What I want to do is I want to tell this to have a margin auto and display block property, because normally an image is in line, and so what we want it to do is behave like a block level element so that it can auto center itself. So let's test that out real quick. Okay, so we click on it and you see now at least the picture is in the center. Good. Okay, so that's a good stopping place for this demo. Go ahead and start the next one. It should be one of the last ones, and you're going to see how to finish styling that close button, and then you should be able to go ahead and start making pages from your template then and create your content for your site.